Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Shalini, yes.
Okay. I think we are ready to go ahead and start our webinar. So a very good evening and a warm virtual welcome to you all. My name is Shalini and I'm a psychologist. We're presenting today our webinar series with an awesome team at Healing Minds. Healing Minds is the first of its kind community mental health telecounseling platform. A team of volunteers from the field of mental health dedicated to psychological healing and well-being. As a part of our mental health awareness program, we are here today with our webinar series, beginning with our very first webinar. While we did not choose COVID-19, we cannot control all of it and the uncertainty it brings. We can definitely control who we are and what we want to stand for in the face of it. In this webinar series, you will learn how to build your resilience and mental toughness skills. My heartfelt thanks to all the attendees for taking the call and look forward to your active participation. Before I introduce you to our speakers today, a few general information about how the whole webinar will work. We have two speakers today, and they will present the presentation. While they're presenting, there may be some queries or questions or something that you would want to add to the presentation. You could either raise your hand and I would take that reactions or record of it. And towards the end of our presentation, the last 10 to 15 minutes, we can have a Q&A session, a question and answer session. So if there's anything that pops up into your mind during the presentation, please take note of it. Use a pen, pencil, paper, and write it down, and we can have a beautiful interactive session towards the end of the presentation. Let me introduce you to our speakers today. We have wonderful Roseanne Cooper and Ninar Itani today. Roseanne is passionate about mental health. She believes that good mental health is key to happiness and well-being. She believes in self-expression, which can take many forms: art, music, writing, sports, fashion, playing, and so much more. She's an art therapist, and she believes creative expression and mental health go hand in hand. Ninar Itani holds 2 master's degree MSc, one in educational psychology and the second in psychology, and she's pursuing her PhD in clinical psychology. Ninar has been working very closely with children in her clinical experience as a social worker with Children Protective Services in Montreal, Canada, and refugee children in Lebanon. She's also worked with special needs as SEND coordinator and school counselor. Both Roseanne and Ninar are thrilled to have this opportunity to create and collaborate with Healing Minds program and be with you here today. Not taking much of your time, I would like both Roseanne Cooper and Ninar Itani to carry forward with today's webinar session.
Thank you very much, Shalini, for the introduction. And welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. And I'm happy to hear that many of you have joined us today. So as Shalini had spoke, we've been going through a lot of uncertain times and a lot of crazy times. So we thought about the topic of resilience, and I thought it would be a good time to introduce what resiliency is. And what we're doing with this presentation is we're actually talking about resilience in the context of Minecraft. So before we start, I actually have a very important question. So I have a very important question to ask you, and it's about Minecraft. So how familiar are you with it? How many times do you play Minecraft? I'm going to ask you if you can. There is a chat box where you can write down the answers. And yeah, if you can write it down, that would be great. So I see we're getting some of the answers. Personally, I'm going to say I don't have much experience with it until now. And I think my age also doesn't help. So for those who don't know what Minecraft is, it's a video game where you can play in creative mode or in survival mode. And players need to build their own world. They have to discover material, craft tools, get resources, and fight sometimes mob or other player. I see a lot of you are very familiar with it, and I see some of you not so much. Okay, so now that you have an idea of what Minecraft is, I think you're going to guess what my next question is. I would like to know how familiar are you, or what is your understanding of resilience? So if you can go to the next slide, I would like you also, if you can, maybe write down a small message in the message box about what is resilience for you, maybe what it means to you, what comes to your mind. It can be an emotion. It just can be maybe one word. Do you know? And if you don't know, that's also okay. That's why we're here today. So I see. Okay, so most of you are on the right track. It is about staying strong. It's about person's capacity to deal with stressful situation, controlling emotion, withstanding and recover. I really love what some of you are writing here. Withstanding and recover. Resilience is something that gets you through the storm. I love this. It's the ability to adapt to change conditions and withstand and rapidly recover from disruption due to emergency. Sorry, I'm reading your response because I really love where you're going with this. So yes, you're all on the right track. Ability to recover quickly from difficulties. Resilience is a form of mental toughness. We're all very, very familiar with being strong physically. So resilience is about being strong, but more in our mind, being strong emotionally, being strong mentally, psychologically. It's a person's ability to bounce back from stress and emotional trauma. So COVID-19 is a great example of the stress that we can go through. And many of you maybe have been through a lot of stressful experiences, like maybe losing someone, moving to a new country, losing friends, being bullied. All these are considered very stressful situations. And resilience can be a skill, can be a superpower to help us deal with all this stress. The good news is resilience is something that we're not born with, but it's something that we develop, we can learn. And like playing Minecraft, each player's journey will be different. So what works for me might not what works for others, or what works for you might not be what works for others. We all develop our resiliency in a different way. So having resiliency also, what's important to know is having resilience means you will still feel anxious, you might still feel sad, you might still feel upset and unhappy. Doesn't going to protect you from all these emotions, but at least you will have the skills to stand up, to bounce back, and to move on. So what's the link between resilience and Minecraft? So while we were working on this presentation, what we noticed, my colleague Roseanne and I, that a lot of the building blocks that you need when you're playing Minecraft are very, very similar to what you would need to build resilience in real life. So building resilience is like playing Minecraft. You need to plan, you need to accept, you need to reflect, and you need to adapt. So in the next slide, I'm going to go through briefly these 4 different building blocks or steps, and then my colleague Roseanne will go through them a bit in more details. So planning is important because it gives you a sense of control by setting small goals. You can set small goals, you expect challenges, and then you can sit down with others and come up with solutions. Accepting also is very important. A lot of times we cannot change what's happening, but we can change how we respond to things. And again, COVID is a great example. So it's important for us to accept what's happening and give ourselves a chance to learn the skills of resiliency and build them with the help of others. The third building block is reflecting. It's important to remember to be kind to ourselves and give ourselves a chance just to pause, to think about how we felt certain times, how things made us feel, what are the choices we've made in the past, what are the things that we want to change for the future, and consider other options and resources. And finally, the last building blocks is adapting. It's a changing world. And it's very important for us to learn how to adapt. No one knew that COVID was going to happen. Again, it was new for all of us. we had to adapt to the new reality and to the new normal in order to be able to continue with our lives. So now that you have a bit of an idea of what are these building blocks, I'm gonna give the floor to Roseanne for her to go a bit to go in details about these different building blocks, and yeah, and let you know how it works in Minecraft too. I noticed that someone was asking what is Minecraft. I had explained it before, but maybe you've missed it. So Minecraft is a video game where players, they can build their own world. They discover materials, they craft tools, they get resources, they can fight with other players. It can be, they have to survive in a way. And it also can be played in a creative mode where they have to build their own world in terms of different structures, different buildings, different rooms. And we noticed that a lot of the skills that takes to build in Minecraft are very similar to the skills you need to build resilience. So if you want me, I can start with I can continue with the presentation until maybe Roseanne comes back. Apparently she was removed, maybe by mistake. Okay, while we wait for Roseanne to come back, how many teenagers, what's the age range that we have today? Happy birthday to the new 15-year-old. Yeah, I would like to know if you have at any point, maybe at the end of the presentation, give us even more feedback about what you think, how similar Minecraft is to resilience. That would also be great. Okay, I like what Azhar said. He was talking about stocking up on resources to build your own shelters. I want you to keep that in mind because it's an excellent skill in Minecraft, and we will see now how we can apply it in real life. And I'm sure you all have a lot to add, so I would love to hear all of your feedback at the end, whether it's on Minecraft or your new mixtape, because maybe that's your form of resiliency. That's how you fight stress in your life.
Okay, Ninar?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Shalini. I have a message from Roseanne. I think that she has some difficulty with her connection. So she might take some time to rejoin and re-register, just get back to the team. So if you could continue with the next slide,
yes.
I think she can just continue from there. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through these building blocks, but we're gonna talk first about how it applies to Minecraft, how resiliency is seen in Minecraft, and then we're gonna see how it's seen in real life. So if we can go to the next slide. So planning. Again, you're probably much more familiar with planning than me. Okay, so in survival mode, I guess when you're playing Minecraft, if you leave your base at night or you're exploring in the dark, you're risking your life. So you can get lost, you can lose item, you can get attacked by monsters or falling into a hole. So what do you usually do in Minecraft? You plan. You plan ahead, you make sure there's light, you take a torch to light your way, or you just go to bed and skip the night. So that's what happens in Minecraft. So we thought about how planning is in Minecraft, but also how do we plan in real life? It's very similar to Minecraft. So in real life, when you want to build resiliency, you also plan for challenges. You plan to overcome issues by maintaining healthy routines. And what do you do in your routines? You have to make sure that you have time to play, to take care of yourself. I know some of it you've heard it a lot of your parents, but research shows that it works. You have to eat healthy, you have to exercise, you have to limit also exposure to news and to media. I know now with COVID, a lot of people have been watching the news 24 hours. That can be very harmful. What you need to do, you can watch the news, the main event once a day, and that's enough. It's also important to establish a routine with waking and sleeping, to have a schedule. And I'm sure you hate to hear this, but no electronics 2 hours before sleeping, because it does affect your brain and it does affect your sleeping. Personally, for example, I started kickboxing. I don't know how many of you do it, but it really helps me. I made sure that I have it twice a week, and it helps me release some of my energy. So that's for my physical activity. And I make sure I take care of myself. I make sure I have breaks. So I would also love to hear what are the things that you have planned and or put in place in terms of exercising. Maybe it's doing art, maybe it's drawing, music. I see that some of you here have music talent, are talented musically. So there's different ways of doing it and to build resilience, but you have to plan first and put all these in place. So yeah, so that's for planning. The next slide, it's about accepting. Accept the challenge. Accepting the challenge is the game. So in Minecraft, when players are stuck or are building something that's not working, they seek help outside the game. They ask their friends to join, they look up for tutorial, they ask for help on a community forum. And apparently there's a lot of YouTube videos where you can access like information or tips, or they can help you and teach you how to play. So exactly the way it is in Minecraft, where you accept where you are and what's happening, you need to do the same in real life. So in the next slide, it's about accepting what's going on. And maybe we can't change what's happening, but what we can change is our emotion. So what happens is we don't know, we can't control what's happening. We have to accept it, and that what we can do is decide what we're going to do with it. Our options are talking to friends, family, teacher, counselor, talking to someone else. It doesn't have to be someone professional. Talking to someone else can be super helpful, and research shows that it's the most protective factor, which means it shows that it helps a lot. It can help us a lot just to talk to someone and let out our emotions. As we mentioned, as we also mentioned before, hobbies, doing hobbies, starting new hobbies. It can be start new hobbies like cooking, maybe doing art, fashion, sports is also another way. When you feel overwhelmed and you want to help also yourself to accept what's been happening, you can use humor. And last but not least is deep breathing in and out, meditation, yoga. I don't know how many of you are familiar or already practice some kind of meditation, but meditation or mindfulness are also shown to be very effective in times of stress. That's for accepting. Now, the next building block is reflecting. Reflecting is very important. And I'm sure a lot of you already do it, but you're not conscious of it. It's very important for us to take a break, to stop. I think we're used to this word where we're overwhelmed with all the news, with all the social media, with everything that's happening. We need to be able to say stop, to take a break. So how does reflecting look like in Minecraft? So when you're returning from mining or exploring, players reflect on their adventures. And they think about what tools are needed to recover items. They have to put the items safely in a chest, consider which mining technique yielded the most resources, what tools are needed on their next journey. And exactly like in Minecraft, where you stop and you have to think of your options, of your resources, what's next, what works, what's not working. You have to do the same in real life. When you're facing a difficult situation, it's very important for you to stop. You have to think what's happening, what you're feeling, what you've done before, because maybe you've dealt with a similar situation before and it worked. So think of what are your strengths, your values, what worked before, what's different in the situation now, and what are the tools that you can work on now. So review your goals, your strength, values, skills. Be kind to yourself. I don't think I say this enough. People forget, they're so negative sometimes with themselves. So it's important to give yourself a break, be kind to yourself, positive self-talk. Instead of saying, oh my God, I didn't do anything during the COVID or when I was home, you have to think of everything else that you've actually done. And then think of what you can learn from others or how you can help others. All of this can really put things in perspective and help you get stronger. So the next slide, adapting. As we've mentioned before, we don't always choose what's happening. In Minecraft, when starting a new world, you never know what biome you'll spawn in or what structures are nearby, but you adapt to the situation, don't you? So if you can't find food, you build a farm. You can't find the blocks to build, you use different ones. Understanding of the materials at hand to get the most out of the situation is very important. So you look around you, you look what you can work with, what you don't have, what you have, and you adapt to the situation. And these are the experiences that are going to help you build resilience. Again, the same applies for real life. Knowing don't always have a choice about the situation we find ourselves in, but you do have a choice of how to respond. Okay, again, in COVID situation, people had to manage. We couldn't change what was happening, but we could adapt. So I've heard that a lot of people, they bought these pools in Dubai, and then there was a new business, which is the ice blocks delivery. So people, because of the heat, the pools were very hot. So there was a new business where people would buy ice blocks for their home pools. Another thing, there was these Zoom birthday parties you could organize. I don't know if you have more ideas that I would love to hear, but like you see, like sometimes we can't control what's happening, but we can adapt to the situation. We can change things to our advantage. We can learn new skills, and these are some of the tips that that's going to help us develop resiliency and build with all these challenges. And you adapt the way you study. You can adapt the way you're playing with something, with food, with fashion, with hobby, family time. So and these skills are going to help you now and during all your life. We don't know, again, it's a changing world. We don't know what challenges might come in our way. Yeah, so you adapt. I come from Lebanon, where I had to go through, I don't know if you're familiar, but Lebanon is a war-torn country, and I'm actually there now, and we didn't have electricity, and I had to adapt, and I have to change, and I had to make sure that I have it, I had now for this presentation, and it was very stressful, but yeah, I saw what worked, what didn't work, and you make decisions, and you try to adapt to what's happening. So in a way, these are the different building blocks that's going to help you to develop resiliency and to learn resiliency. Now for the last slide, we're actually approaching the end of our presentation. So I would love to thank everyone who's here for your participation. But before we go, I would like to ask you about what do you do, or what are the skills that you choose when you're feeling stressful, or maybe after reviewing this presentation, what are the things that you think might help you, or maybe something that you liked, or maybe something in this presentation made you think of something that usually helps you in stressful time. Maybe something that can help you build your resilience. And remember, planning, reflecting, accepting, adapting. All these building blocks can help us grow resilient. So if you don't mind, I would love to hear some of your feedback, some of your ideas. Please feel free to ask questions. And please know that Healthy Mind is there. You can reach out whenever you want. You can call us also if you don't feel comfortable talking on this platform. So now I'm going to just head to check the question. Okay, I see that a lot of people try to find new hobbies to be occupied. Planning, strategy making based on available facts, looking at obstacles and work around it. Exactly. Taking things step by step, I think is important to remember, because sometimes when at first things feel overwhelming. I try to distract myself whenever the news comes on. Bond with family, excellent ideas. Drink coffee, why not? Remember also what works for you might not work for others, so it's also important to see what you're comfortable with. How do I stay motivated to the new habit I find? Okay, so I'll also write down the questions and I'll try to answer them in the end. I hope for the best and prepare for the worst. I like that. Forgive people who hurt me. Detach myself from news for a while. Zoom call with friends and family, very important. Craft for relaxation. I wish Roseanne was here because she's an art therapist. She would have given you a lot of nice ideas about art.
Yeah.
My kids, yes, baking. Yeah. Nice. Yes, baking is can be very disengaging when you want to relax. Talking to my friends. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of the things you do already, so it's important for you to continue doing them. It's important to know that, yes, they do help. Talking to others, playing games, also playing games for fun. Make an aquarium. I love that idea. Listening to music, yeah, that works for me. Yeah, baking and crafts. Go out near to nature. Yeah, I have a lot of friends started cycling. It's important to stay motivated, to remember your goals. When you're trying to start something new, put short-term goals, because if it's something that's difficult to achieve, you're going to lose interest very quickly. So it's important to put short-term goals, to plan it, to do a little bit every day. Yeah, learning new things. I have some friends who started learning a new language. Having time to yourself, yeah. Having time to reflect. Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed that exactly you already do a lot of the things that we've talked about. A lot of these building blocks are already incorporated in your life, but it's important to make sure you plan. It's important to make sure you have them in a routine. Reflect about them, what's worked, what hasn't worked. Playing with my son, yes, of course, with family. Doing something new. Please let me know if anyone has any questions and any feedback. The Minecraft lovers. Any ways you see resilience in Minecraft in other ways? Maybe I've missed some things. Yes, be happy. Or if something was not clear, please let me know.
I think we have Roseanne back. Hi, Roseanne. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Yes, I've done so. Hello.
Welcome back, Roseanne. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Ninar, for taking over for me. So resilience in real life. We did a live demonstration, haven't we? So where are you at, Ninar?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Yes, Roseanne. She has gone through all the slides that you were supposed to present, but I'm sure there could be so much more that you could just add on to.
And are we live in the meeting together at this moment, Shalini?
Yes, very much.
Okay, so I will keep going. So where are we at? So in real life, adapting. So we've done a live demonstration about how we adapt. And where are we at the last page? Okay. So I think that I'm not sure what I can add at this point. We're on the final slide. So
yeah, Roseanne, sorry for the interruption. If you could add on how through art therapy you could work on resilience and connect it through Minecraft.
Yeah, and I think that would take us back to a couple of slides before when we talked about accepting, and we talked about some strategies of what to use. And so we looked at under the acceptance, if you want to just flip back to that one, that's probably the quickest one that we can use. Go back again, the accept page. And on there is when we were talking to friends. Yeah, that one there. Nope. Go forward. One more slide. Yeah, that one right there. Okay, feeling overwhelmed. So this is a good example. So I just got out of the meeting and just kindly let back in. And I guess humor is the strategy I used. And also knowing that I had some friends helping on the other end, trying to get me back in. And so what does this look like for you when something challenging comes up? So it could be, let's say, for example, you've got a test in math and you didn't do very well on the assignment. So that's a real example of what happens and when we get overwhelmed and we think, oh, I'm just no good in math, and this teacher never gives good marks, so they always create questions on the exams we can't get, and so forth. So that's typically what I hear when we get overwhelmed. However, when we flip that around, here are some strategies on this page of what to do. And so when we talk to a friend, what does that look like in our lives? So for me, I use Zoom or BotIM or Discord or text messenger or something like that. But something else I really wanted to point out here going forward is on the bottom of this slide in the left-hand side, there is the Dubai help phone. And I'd really encourage you all to write that number down so that when we leave this meeting, you can call into this help phone and we can help remind you of all the ideas that we talked about today about resilience. So that's one strategy. And I would suggest when you talk to a friend, talk regularly, talk to a lot of different people. We don't need to let it build up and become a big, big challenge. And we can just do it very often. And that's really helpful to keep things in control and to continue to build our resilience. And so when I talk to a friend or have an uplifting story, it really just takes my mind off the problem. So when we talk to people, we don't necessarily need to talk about the problem. We can just talk about other things that are funny in life. And that's also a helpful way to build ourselves, build our confidence back up, as many of you talked about, and you already know about resilience. And when we look at number two, on number two, under there, it's some funny figures. I'm not sure if you can see too clearly what those are, but it talks about hobbies and artists doing some artwork, fashion, or sports. So in your lives, just to take a moment to reflect a little bit, and maybe in the chat site, write down what you do. And so while you're doing that, and I actually on my phone now, so I can't see the chat very well, but why don't you write down what you do? So for me, I like to run, and Ninar, who was speaking earlier today, she loves to kickbox. How awesome is that? So getting all sweaty, getting the blood flowing, getting some, stuff out. So when we have exercise, we increase our dopamine and we feel really good. And that helps us in a couple of ways. So one, it can make us feel focused, and we can only think about one thing. So when you're thinking about your sport, you cannot think about your problem at the same time. So it gives you a lovely break. So other people, we can do art. For me, I really like to doodle or paint, sketch. I'm part of a group, and they give some lovely feedback. And so that's another way to get out from underneath that feeling of being overwhelmed, or there's a problem that just can't be solved. Sometimes we have things in our lives that really can't be solved, but taking a break and doing things we love is really helpful for that. That's for sure. And if there are, I see, I like to play the piano. It just brings me tranquility. That is an amazing way. I didn't put music on there, so thanks for adding that. And I didn't see the other comments yet, but thank you for writing them in. Yes, so sometimes when we're overwhelmed, we don't think to do the, sorry, I just need to let somebody in. Somebody's still coming into the meeting. When we're overwhelmed, we don't always think of what to do or consciously go ahead and do these things. So also sports, we talked about sports and hobbies and fashion. Yeah, so taking the time to do your hair, do another style, paint your nails, that kind of thing. Those are all just some fun things you can do to get from feeling overwhelmed. Number three there is humor. For me, I've got this fantastic friend who sends me little comic strips every once in a while, and they're quite hilarious. Or I'll get onto YouTube and I'll watch Trevor Noah or somebody like that. And so laughter is truly the best medicine, and it really helps us to feel good. And funny enough, when you do your sports, your music, your art, all of those things, those are ways that our brain can get transformed. And when we come back to our challenge, we can think about the problem in an entirely new way. So even though this seems like maybe it wouldn't help the problem, in fact, it really does. This is how our brains are designed, is to be flexible. When we start to think of life in different ways and different perspectives, this is how we build resilience and creativity. And then we can actually solve our problem more readily than if we had just focused on the problem the whole time. And so I would say this is one of the most important pages, if we were going to sum this up, is talk, move, create, and breathe. And I didn't go focus on breathing there, but I think it really is quite important as well. And one technique that I like to use, I'm holding my phone, but what you do is you hold your hand up and you breathe in as you're going up your finger, and take your other finger and go down and breathe in. As we go up to the top and go down and breathe in and go down and up and go down. And when you take 5 breaths, and you may have noticed just as I was doing that, that already my body is calmer and my speech patterns are closer. And when we can take the time to remember to do the deep breathing, our brains come back online. So we're not on hyper-focused and alert. Now we have more access to different parts of our brain. And then we'll remember, oh yeah, I could call my friend and then have a conversation. So the deep breathing is really important to help bring all of our resources back into the front of our minds, and we have all our wisdom available to us. So I think that that is all I really wanted to cover on that screen. Is there anything else that we should focus on? So Ninar, I'll ask you to unmute yourself, and maybe you could see if we could finish this off, or we can go to questions.
I know that I noticed someone said that sometimes I don't feel like talking to my own friends, which I think is very understandable.
Yeah, and I would agree. There are times when I really don't feel like talking to friends either. And that's why this slide is really great, because we need to have several strategies for when we're not feeling good. And so that's when we revert to this number 2. So going to do an art, go for a walk. And this is really good. When we talked about Minecraft, when you're going into that house and you're reflecting and you're putting your things away and going to the crafting table and rebuilding for the next journey. When we go to our reflection, it's a really good idea to write down all the things that really do work well for you. Because when you aren't in a good space, you can dip into that jar. I have actually done this really physically. With my kids too, we write on the fridge what works well. And so if you don't feel like talking to anyone, that's okay, but pick something else on the list. And so I'd really encourage you to write down a variety of things that work, and then you have lots of options for you. Does that help?
It can be writing. Just writing. It's because we express ourselves very differently. Some people maybe feel better playing sports, but others might feel more comfortable writing a poem, maybe writing a short story, or just writing your thoughts. So yeah, so there's a lot of ways to express yourself. It doesn't have to be with a friend or family again, or if you want, you can still go see like maybe the counselor at school, and they can also help you out to give you more ideas.
And certainly call the Dubai help phone as well. Were there any other questions?
Ms. Roseanne?
Ninar, I think you can see the chat room better than I can, Ninar. So if there's any other questions, we're happy to field them. Yes, Shalini.
Yeah, there was a question in our chat box, and the person has asked if hobby is the only way to acquire resilience. Of course, you know, you've addressed so many things that might have answered this question, but is there something more that, you know, can answer this question? What he writes is, I think that resilience isn't something that can be acquired in only a hobby. So that was his question, and I think you very well answered that, where you have so many other activities or ways to emphasizing on just communication, so it doesn't have to be a solitaire affair of hobby or just some kind of craft, but it's also about communicating, right?
Yeah, I just would like to add, one of the most important things when it comes to resilience is connecting to other. And when you say connecting to other, it doesn't have to be just talking to someone else. It can be just going out with your friends. It can be doing hobbies, but it's also being surrounded with other people, talking to other people. And as Roseanne had said, you can be just go for a walk on your own. So it's really a combination of different activities.
Sure.
Roseanne, would you like to add?
Yeah, I'd like to, if you can ask the question even further. Yes, I would absolutely agree that there are some challenges that really take a lot of time to unwind. And so just doing a hobby isn't going to solve the problem. I would absolutely agree. What doing the hobby does, though, is it gives our brains a break from the problem, and it sets us up to think about the problem differently. And that's the same when you talk with somebody, is they will see the challenge from a different perspective, or maybe they have some wisdom to add to that. And I'm not sure, are we answering the question that you were wondering about?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We have
Thank
one more
you.
question.
It is a
Yes.
challenge, so I'm glad you asked the question.
There's some more questions which are, I'm just picking up the ones that are different from each other. There's a question from someone who says, how to improve self-esteem? How can I improve my self-esteem?
Yeah, I love that question. I've done a lot of workshops on self-esteem, and it takes time. And you know what the number one was that we figured out over time is we got together in groups. That was one of the best ways to talk about things with other people, real stuff that you're really dealing with. If you can find a safe group to share that in. So it's so good to hear, me too. I have that problem too. I worry about what I wear and how my body feels and how I'm changing. I worry about my thoughts and if that's, healthy to think about the world in these terms. It is so important to connect with people your own age or people who are going through similar things. It's a really one of the most important things to help build self-esteem is to connect with others, I would say. But I'd also be curious to hear what Ninar wants to add to that.
Be kind to yourself and positive self-talk. I've noticed that especially these days, there's a lot of pressure from the social media, from everything around us. And we tend to be a bit harsh with ourselves. I think the first step is to accept, of course, who we are and what's happening, and be kind to yourself and talk a bit nicer to ourselves. I think we tend to just look at the negatives, but for once, instead of focusing on what we are not, maybe focus on what we are. I think
and I'm glad you brought up social media, because I will pick up on that as well. We really need to be mindful of social media and how we feel when we are doing it and after. So there can be a real negative effect when you're watching social media. There's a comparison, and that is a vital part of self-esteem, is when you have negative comparison going on. Somebody else is going on a trip, has a nicer house or a bedroom, or wears cool clothes that I can't get access to. These are all ways that we negatively compare ourselves to others and makes us feel a little bit worse about ourselves. So really be mindful when you are on social media, what is the effect? And maybe shorten the amount of time that you use it, or build different groups that really do a better job of helping you feel good about yourself. That is essential, and that is a skill that takes a lot of time. And having the courage to remove yourself from a group is also vital. So the other thing about self-esteem is about boundaries, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here, is having some really healthy boundaries about your social media exposure, and making sure when you are done with social media, oh, I feel great. That was really nice to talk to that person or hang out, or that was really funny what was sent out. So those are some really good ways that you can think about building self-esteem.
If I can read the last question before we wind up for this webinar session. The person has, I think, yeah. How do I stop overthinking or stop creating negative scenarios in my mind? How do
Yeah.
I stop? Yeah.
You know, I'm glad you asked that question, because that is a really common experience for almost everyone. Anxiety, I think maybe I'll term it is in terms of anxiety. And that is probably 90% of the reason people will call a counselor. So it is common. And what it is that when we are thinking about the present, that doesn't exist. When we think about the future, that's where anxiety lives. And I'll also add to that, when we're thinking about the past, what I should have done differently, that can lead to depression. So that's why it's so important to focus on the present. And that goes back to our ideas of when we're doing art or sports or watching a movie or playing a video games with other friends, having fun and laughing. That brings us fully in the present, and anxiety doesn't live there. And I will note, maybe you'll notice in your own life, when you are doing something so fun and you don't even notice time going by, anxiety never lives there. So when we live in the present and we're breathing, doing our deep breathing, that is when we're tranquil. And I think there was another lovely comment about playing music. That's when you are fully in the moment. Anxiety doesn't live there. So it is a practice, absolutely a practice. And I fully believe that anyone can learn this with a little help, with a little support. So again, if something's going off the rails, and you're really having a hard time bringing it back to the present, call the Dubai help phone for sure, or talk to a friend that you trust.
There's one more request. There's one more question, Roseanne, Ninar, whoever would like to answer this. Generally, people giving importance to family and others, but not to own, then how to do?
I'm not sure I understood the question. Shalina, can you help me again?
Generally, people giving importance to family and others, but not own, then how to do? I'm reading it verbatim.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think it goes a bit with what we mentioned before about being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Roseanne talked about boundaries. It's it's being assertive. I think people sometimes struggle between being either too nice or too mean. The key is to be assertive. It's to look within yourself. It's to be kind to yourself, to make sure you're being taken care of, but you're also able to say no when you feel it's taking a bit too much from what you have to offer, or when you don't have the time, don't have the energy. Setting boundaries and putting boundaries is something that also you can learn, and it's not something that sometimes it doesn't come easy to people, so it's okay, but you need to make sure that you understand your own limits, and what you can do and what you can't, and what's going to affect you. Again, be kind to yourself, reflect. We talked a lot about reflection in this presentation. Take time, take a pause to think what's worked, what has not worked, what you've done before. Maybe if you know that that's something that bothered you in the past, maybe then saying no to it is important.
And can I just add on to that, Ninar, that this is an excellent question, and it takes practice. And so I'd absolutely encourage you to find somebody who you think has great self-esteem and that takes care of themselves as well as family and others, and check in with them, ask them questions. And those are people that can mentor you to get to where you want to be.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Roseanne. Thank you, Ninar. I think we really had some technical issues, but Ninar has completely, done the job for Roseanne. And thank you so much, Roseanne, for coming back and doing such a wonderful presentation. I think you have shared how we can create this resiliency many a times we do, we know we have been doing these things, but a constant reminder through these kind of presentation just keeps us aware of what is necessary to keep us going during this crisis time. The game itself, the beautiful idea of Minecraft and resilience. I mean, rarely we can connect, with a game and with resilience. So I like the way you connected the resilience building skills and Minecraft. You enter a world and you have to gather blocks which become your resources. And that's exactly what we want our people to do for their mental health and overall well-being. I hope that was useful to everyone and given a greater perspective. Come what may, develop mental resilience to sail through the hardship and emerge stronger than before. I think that's the message of today's presentation. I'm glad we had a very interactive sessions because we had a lot of feedback and questions that people wanted to discuss and talk. Healing Minds is always available to everyone. It's just a call away and we can discuss if there are any issues. Thank you once again and look forward to meet you soon. As I said, we are having a series of webinars this week. This was our first one, and we'll meet you soon on the 23rd with yet another webinar session on disconnecting from e-learning stress. I think that's the most relevant. We had some questions of students who spoke about exams and anxiety and how do I do. And with this new e-learning system, many have adapted to it, but I'm sure it still is a concern for many youngsters who are still finding it difficult. So hope to see you all again on the 23rd with a new session. And thank you once again. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.